aliens and earthlings. Welcome to the Domino API Access session. My name is Stefan. I have with me Paul. And so that is an Englishman and a German working together, which is unheard of. And I prepared about 600 slides because only at 60 slides a second the movie doesn't flicker. And I will show you exactly one out of that 600. And the interesting question is, what is keep? In a nutshell, it's like, say, keep is rest for Domino done right. So we sat down and thought, what do our customers want? And then we realized that there are two big groups. One is developers, the other one is power users. And they want to get access to their data in whatever way that is. And so we built something that speaks JSON because that's the flavor of the day. XML is a little bit out of fashion. That speaks REST, that can deal with OData, and that can be used from simple applications like a browser, a React or an Angular application, or from an application server, up to you. We made very, very clear that we want to stick to open standards. And this was the slideshow. Now let's go to more practical things. I need to show you a little video first, because that's a functionality that is only available in Windows, and I usually live on a Mac, but that shouldn't deter us from having a little fun with that. If I can find my video player over here. There you go. So this is a recording we did on Windows for, like, say, what business users would like. And then you go the standard tool, Excel. If I ever had to kill the planet, I would make sure that all the Excel files are deleted. And Excel on Windows has this capability to read data from OData. And we built in the lab an adapter as part of the Keep project that transfers nodes data into the OData format, which is a kind of an interesting mix between JSON and XML. So my little remark on XML wasn't fully unfounded. So, and what you see there is it recognizes the form based on the nodes form and loads that into the Excel sheet. In its current incarnation, it's a read-only, but that's just a question of time. And I can go there and here you see a JSON format, how to fill this in. We will see this application later in action when Paul is doing a demo. And we then can go and submit this, send this over. And the nice little thing is when you go to Excel and refresh the data, you see straight away that the data is there. So it's not export, it is actually live data. And that's all what I wanted to show you on the movie, because I say live demos is much more fun. So Project Keep is technically it's a Java application written in the WordX framework. WordX is an Eclipse top-level project, mainly sponsored by our friends in Red Hat. And it's also, like, say, the underpinning framework on the Red Hat Quarkus framework, what they use for cloud-native microservices. So, and one of the design goals I had is to say, okay, it only makes sense to play with it if I can play with it. And so Keep can run on a Nodes client. So I'm sitting here on my Mac, and when you look carefully into the URL, you will see I have a .local address. So this whole thing is running against a local Nodes client. Of course, you wouldn't want to do this in production because that would be a little bit single user like. But to get started, that's a very good thing, because you don't need to bother your admin to set something up, or a test environment or a VM or whatever. You just throw it onto onto your machine, and you're good to go. But of course, we are developers, and we know it's the 21st century, and the latest and greatest when it comes to development is command lines. And I said, okay, let's play command line. So I say, okay, keep login, and oops, I should typo properly. And we're using JWT as the authentication mechanism to make your life easy. Keep has an ability. You use your Domino password and your Domino user ID, and it gives you JWT token. This is nice to try. But if you said, okay, I have Active Directory or Keycloak or whatever solution for identity, you can go and link that up to keep, so you have a single point where you get your identity. So I'm now logged in, and then I can say, okay, keep, get me the databases I have on the system. So I go in, and it's a lot of stuff coming there, and a lot of text. So if you're really geeky, you will realize this text is actually a base64 encoded SVG image. But I find it hard to read, so I use a little tool on the Mac that's called JQ. Also available on Linux. I'm not sure about Windows, but probably, which then goes and renders this a little better. Or if you're really good in JQ, or have a cheat sheet for copy and paste, you can set actually show me only the databases that are active. And that's one of the first things what you see. They said, oh, Stefan, you say this is running against Domino. I don't see NSF. And one of the decisions what we made is to say, okay, we want to make the API appealing to somebody who understands JSON, who understands REST, and not necessarily knows a lot about Domino. So we have aliases that we configure. So for instance, I have my alias demo is easy to guess, points to the demo NSF. But if you move it around, you rename the database or put it somewhere else, you just need to update the configuration setting, and your API doesn't break. That was one of the important things what we want to do. So then I said, okay, I have this the demo database, and I would really like to see what are the forms in my demo database. And since I'm a command line champion, I simply add the keep get design forms, and then the part behind with the JQ, that's just to make things a little easier. I said, okay, there is a sample form, there is a from Salesforce form, there is a from Salesforce form, there's customer and marketing. I said, okay, why is Stefan playing with Salesforce? Besides the fact that I worked for them until Jason lured me back into the family. What you just seen in Excel also works in Salesforce. So let's look a little bit deeper. I want to say, okay, I would like to submit a data to the database. And just to give you an idea, let's have a quick look first in the sample database. It's not really very sophisticated. It's just to give you an idea. So that's my database. So I have the sample form, and I have shape, round, color, taste. Whoever got on one of my X Pages classes a decade ago, we had these examples before. So I have this little demo database, and now I'm going to say, I'm going to go and submit some data. That's you can easily guess. That's keep.post. And I'm going to use the demo JSON. The demo JSON looks like this one. Moment, let me drag it into view sample, and let's to see that I'm not cheating. So let's say shape is pentagram. We just had Halloween, so that makes a little sense. So I save that, roll it out away, and then when I execute this command, said it goes and said, okay, I sent out this data. It got this UNID, it got this node ID, and then also it provides an e-tag. This one is like, say, web developers will appreciate that because that allows you to query whether you should reread data on that. And then when you look at this in the nodes database, let me pull it back into the view, then you will realize that the data has been added here. No, there you go. Background, nice. Okay, so I said Salesforce. Just a little discourse before we go back into the command line. I have a Salesforce unit there, and what you can see there, I point to my server. I said the format is JSON. It's OData 4.0. And then it pulls the data in. I did this already. That takes a moment. And then you realize that you actually see UNID, color, form, shape, taste. So we can surface Domino data, read, write. Currently, we got the read working. We're working on the write inside your Salesforce organization if you want to. A little experience there. To make this really work, you want to have an external ID, which we usually synchronize with the UNID, because otherwise an update will not be possible, because that's the unique key that Salesforce is using. But just I'll say, so you have an idea that what we do there is universal connectivity. So the last one. I'm realized I have an expenses database, and I'm very curious. I'm gonna go and I said, okay, I want to know what are my forms in expenses, and I send it out and I said, okay, you have all sorts of things, include and this is these are the fields in the approval database. So I don't bore you with the details. I said, I'm going to be a smart jelly. I'm going to go and submit an expense and put myself as the approver. So that my expense looks like this one. So I have the employee name, I have the approver name, put myself in there, not Jason, and 42 has to be the cost. That's clear. And I said, oh, I'm smart. I'm going to submit that. So I'm going to go and to do that, I use a keep post command. Yep. And then it tells me, oops, this actually worked. It sent it off, but it cut out the approver. So we have a full control on what is happening in the API. Typically, we had this REST API attempts in nodes before, but it had the nice the nasty side effect. If you had write access to a document, you could go and overwrite whatever you want. In the keep universe, that's not possible. Okay, now I don't torture you longer with the command line. The only thing is what I'm going to do is reveal how complicated the command line that we built actually was. So I say cat, it's in my bin directory and it's called keep. It's a simple four-line shell script that sends off a curl command. So there's not like nothing API thing to install, but as you see in the text nicely, poor man's keep command line. But okay, the not so cool kids like old men like me, we go and we like a UI better. And on each server, on each keep server or keep client when you start, you get the API that looks like this. And there I can go and look into the API where I have a complete API documentation with all the endpoints and the methods. And this is not just a text. You can actually go in there and say, I want to go and see how it works. So you open it up, and then you could go and say, try it out. And if you properly authenticated, which is also an endpoint, you can go and execute the action. If you're not, you will get a proper 401 error message. If you don't like the Swagger UI that much, we have the same in the Redux flavor, and there you can navigate through the API. What we're currently working on is, of course, so you already see there is documentation. So it says, okay, DB is a string and is required, and field name is a string which then gives more information. So we have a self-documenting system there. But of course, you still need to go and assemble your JSON to get along. So what we did was we built an admin UI. And in the admin UI, I just want to show you a few things before I hand over to Paul to give you a little bit more demo. So I log in case you wonder. This is the door to the Castle Johannesburg, which is the castle in my hometown. I went there and took the picture myself to make sure that we don't have a copyright violation. So we have databases and applications. Applications is basically I can go and allow an application server more access to more databases than, for instance, just a web application. But let's start with the database management. If you don't have an alias defined here in the UI, which is just a shim on the API, so you could do everything you do in the admin UI, you could do that in curl as well. If you don't have a definition, that database is not available on the API. So we made very, very sure that our security is tight, and we make it a little tighter than what you have in the in the standard web. So the first thing is it active or is it not active? This is the alias under it is visible. That's the file path, and then I can go and set okay. Do I allow open access? If I switch this off, you can only access the database to REST API if you have an application server. If you want to access it to a browser application or from a Electron application or directly from a mobile application, then you switch this on. Are you allowed to execute DQL queries or not? Are you allowed to send code snippets like JavaScript or add formula to the server and execute it? So you can specify that. I can further have a look and I said how many agents and procedures are available. And I also can have a look and said, okay, there is 2 forms are configured. Let me just show you that I double click on this one and it retrieves the form or not. Okay, this is where the demo leaves me. Okay, let me try this again. Okay, demo bites me. I show you that one in the documentation. We have a complete on Project Keep.io complete documentation that explains in detail how things work, including how to configure this, how the architecture works, a quick start, how you get started, how to log in, how to admin login, and the likes. Okay, so one of the interesting questions is like, say, why do I want to go with Open API? So we had OData for Excel and Salesforce. We have Open API for the rest. And one of the reasons is there are tons of tools and frameworks there. For instance, one of the things I love to use is Postman, and I can in Postman simply point it to my Keep server, and it will then load the Open API specification and immediately build me a UI. There is modules for Angular, React, which says you point it to an Open API file and it renders your UI. But I think this is a good point where it's a brilliant idea to have Paul to show you a little bit what OpenEye is capable of. And I need to go and can I do that? Make Paul the presenter so he can show you a little more what OpenAPI with Keep is capable of. Okay, I change presenter. Paul, your turn.
Great. Just picking up what Stefan was saying, I'm running on my own server, or actually running against my own client. So this is what the form access modes look like. So you specify the read access field, the write access fields, formulas for who can read the document, who can write the document at this mode, who can delete the document, and formulas to run on load and on save. So the on load might manipulate content before it sends it back to the browser. The on save might add in some additional options. So it might set a default status in the on save. And similarly in the complete, that's a different mode. So at false for delete access, no one can delete the documents using the default mode. So Stefan was talking about OpenAPI specs. And yes, we've got this full OpenAPI spec here, which is what we use dynamically to query the Keep. So when you come to one of these endpoints, and when the server starts up, it's looking at this OpenAPI spec and generating the endpoints based upon it. So, for example, just earlier today, I added a new endpoint in the OpenAPI spec for run with context for agent, and that's now available here. It's available on the server. But since we've got this OpenAPI spec, and since it's JSON, and since you can manipulate JSON, and bearing in mind also that our database spec is defined, surely it's possible to put the two together and come up with a customized OpenAPI spec. This was something that occurred to me in the station at Schiphol Airport after Engage this year. So finally, I did get around to doing that. And what we have now is a customized OpenAPI spec for the to-do database. And you'll notice that it hasn't got any of the admin endpoints. It hasn't got the design endpoints, which are not appropriate for a data user of this database. And just to prove that that is dynamic, let's go in here. And in the config, I noticed John Curtis was on the call earlier, so let's disable DQL and update that. And that's this query endpoint. So if I refresh now, that query endpoint is gone because we've disallowed DQL. Let's just re-enable that because we like DQL, but we'll disable code. So these are some endpoints at the bottom here. So now we've only got the ability to run agents. And in our spec, in our schema, because there are only 2 agents defined as accessible for this database, our OpenAPI spec has an enum with check times and update description as the 2 agents. Similarly for documents, if we come down a bit further and look at our schemas, that to-do database, which I showed you earlier, has 2 modes for the to-do document, default and complete. And so we've got schemas for those. If I go to the create document, we only allow you to create a document at the default mode. So that's the one that's visible there. And you can look at what fields are enabled in it. If I then go to the put, and we've got a mode there, mode, again, we're populating the available values there based upon the dynamically set up modes. And in the schema, then you can drill down and you can see that completed is and form are the only fields that you can update at complete status. All of the fields you can update at default status. So that's the Open API stuff. And of course, once you've got an Open API spec, then you can use things like node-RED nodes. So this is a node that was available. It wasn't developed by me. It was an Open API node that was developed by people out in the developer community. I had to make a few tweaks, but pointing to that Open API spec, we can get all the categories, we can get all of the endpoints within those categories, and it gives us the options to pick up from there. So you can specify that we only want 3 documents there, for example. And just to prove that that's active, here's that for creating a database, and here's the document, the database for that behind the scenes. We've created now, just at that click of a button, a document with a UNID starting 05C6, and if we look at this bottom document, drag that in, then we can see that's the document that's just been created. And we can also update it as well. Now I mentioned agents. We've also got the ability to run agents. So this update description agent, let's just select, get that document ID, and we'll update that document from an agent. So this update description agent, which is just here, is modifying the description, saving it, and returning a value. So, and we've got that agent response there, which was what that was printing. And if I look at the document, it's now got that description updated to complete. Now, if you were on the VoltMX session yesterday, then you'll have heard Jason talking about the VoltMX LotusScript toolkit, which I created. And yes, it was aimed to allow you to call agents easily from VoltMX, but it's really designed for calling agents from any REST service. So all we're defining for the VoltMX stuff is a payload that it's expecting that the LotusScript toolkit can then extract out. So we've got that payload here also from Keep, because if you set this up using agents from VoltMX or using agents over HTTP, and you want to switch to using Keep at a later point, then it should be easy for you to do so. The only difference here, we're calling the agent endpoint the Keep database that we want to use, and the additional bit in the payload is an agent name of an agent to run. So that runs, and this is basically a copy of the agent that's in the toolkit. So the test, it's actually a different agent, the test agent. It is basically this agent just copied. The only difference is on here, we're looking for post as the method. On here, we're checking for keep as the method. So that's it. And just finally, being able to interact with design and agents and those kind of things is good, but wouldn't it be nice to actually be able to do some, not just doing design, but also design and admin. So on Stefan's server, Frascati, don't tell him that I'm doing this. I'm going to create a brand new database. And let's just open that up. I think, is it just created, opening it? Let's just try that again. I think Notes is just running a bit slow there with it. Okay, so let's just move that out of the way. So we'll create a customer form in there and a contact form and views as well. And we'll create a document. So we've created a customer in there, created a contact, and let's get a handle on the ACL so we can access the ACL from there. And let's just add Samantha Darren to that ACL. If I retrieve that ACL again, she's probably then for some reason that's not picking up Samantha Darren. Maybe there's something wrong in the add to ACL bit, but it also allows adding to the ACL, removing from the ACL, and we've got all of those endpoints in there for that as well. So, Stefan, anything that you wanted to add before we finish?
No, so talk to Andrew Manby about when you get access to the toolkit, and we're already over time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. We're hanging out in the break cafes. There will be another session tomorrow on the where we show this again, so you can prepare the questions. Thank you for listening and have a great day. And speaking out of Singapore, you're also yesterday. It's Thursday here already. Thank you.